folks. Let me adjust the camera a little bit. Transit Joe here, T Joe. Today we're going to be doing a hybrid video. It's going to be a neighborhood video and a rant at the same time. And we're going to get caught in this light. This is going to be a long light. Got the green light. It's 87 degrees. We're in Princeton, and we're gonna go check out a community, a new community here in Princeton that we haven't checked on that we haven't rode through in our previous videos. And we're also going to talk about storms, because the Atlantic is firing up with tropical activity, and in fact we have one area to watch in the northwestern Bahamas that may impact us, not too severely, maybe just wind and rain, not as an organized system, but you never know, you got to be careful. But the other day I came through here and there was a detour, and it sent us into this community here that I found it was kind of pretty and interesting to look at. Let's see if we can find our way into it. But the Atlantic, like I said, is I think this is the street right here. It's about to explode in activities. All kind of a tropical system forming out there. And I want to tell you the stories. Go back to 2005 when we had two hurricanes crossed right over us here in Miami-Dade County. I think I made a video on Katrina already. It's the first one that hit us. And look at these pretty homes out here. And the second one was Wilma, hit us in October. I believe it was late October. I got to research the date. I should have done that before I came out here, but I didn't. And by the way, this is the northwestern fringes of Princeton. You can actually call this maybe even Western Ghouls. I think it's Western Ghouls. This may be in the Ghoul CDP. I'll research it, and I'll put it on the comments, or I'll edit it on the video. But this is like the fringes with the agriculture, with the redlands. So anyway, it was I think it was a Saturday night. My partner from work and I were sitting in front of the house. It was at night, and it was super sticky, and we were talking about the Hurricane Wilma out there. Was in Central America at the time, and our concern was that this is going to be a backdoor hurricane, which means it would come in from the west. Most hurricanes come from the east or from the south. This is going to impact us coming from the west, like a couple of hurricanes did before, and it was pretty strong. It was actually pretty strong out there, and causing all kind of problems in Central America. And my buddy said, "This one's coming our way, Joe." I said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Take a look around you. We've been sitting out here for a couple of hours already, and there's not a bird or a creature to be found anywhere. And I have a lot of trees around my neighborhood, so usually there's birds everywhere. And he said all these critters, they went out and they found shelter. I said, you know what? I said, you're right. You are right. And it sure did. They came in right the back door. I went into work. We started evacuating people. The storm was strong. They wasn't exactly sure if it was going to impact Miami-Dade more than Broward, or vice versa. But one thing about backdoor hurricanes on this part of the state, at least, not in central Florida, but in this part of the state, they don't lose too much strength when they come across, because they're coming across the Everglades, which is swampy waters. Remember, the Everglades are known as the river of grass, as some people call it. So we didn't know what to expect. And I remember out there evacuating people, and we're trying to shut the bus service down, and we started running on the bus routes. We supervisors did running on the bus routes. After we shut down a route, we would run and make a cleanup run through it to see if there's anybody waiting at bus stops. And if we did, we tell them, hey, find some shelter, because the storm is coming through. And I was assigned to Route 27, which is a major corridor, Northwest 27th Avenue and Southwest 27th Avenue. It crosses the county from north to south, all the way from Broward into Coconut Grove, the Bayshore. And I was in the Liberty City area, and I had already found a few people at the bus stop and told them to go back home. And I find this, I kid you not, she was about 12 years old, and she's out there with a couple of her brothers that were much younger than her. And I says, where you all going? What are you doing out here? He says, we're trying to get to our Nana's house. I said, didn't you tell you that, there's a storm coming? Why don't you go back home? I said, we're afraid because our mom's not home. I said, where's your mom? She says, my mom went out on a date. I said, holy crap. And then I said, well, where's your Nana's house? And it was right along the 27 route. She knew what she was doing. It was up in Miami Gardens on, I believe it was about 173rd Street, right off of 27th Avenue. So I called it in on the radio, said I was transporting, put them in the van, and headed to the address. Got there, I knocked on the door, had to knock on the door pretty hard. It was already nightfall, and everybody's awaiting a storm. And come on, guys, I always hated this intersection. And finally, the granddad came outside, and he came outside through a side door because they had secured the front door for the storm. And he's looking at me and saying, like, what do you want? And I says, I got what they say is your grandkids are in the car. And he was like, what? I says, yeah, your grandkids are in the car. I found them waiting on the bus. Said their mom was out on a date and they were afraid because the storm is coming. And he was looked at me, and then by that time his wife had come out the house too. They went to the van and looked inside, and he just said, "Oh my God." So they got him, and brought him into safety, and didn't say a word to me. But oh well, job done, So we went back on patrol. There was a supervisor dealing, this is now later into the night. There was a supervisor dealing with a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old. And he had gone to his old neighborhood over at by Lemon City in the Little Haiti area to hang out with friends. And then when he tried to get home, we found that the bus service had been suspended. So the police is the one that called us to go over there and see if we can help this young man. And he told me that he was, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of starting to hear a little bit. I've never been in this area before. It's all new houses. And he told me he lived in an orphanage down here, actually pretty close to where we're at now, and in Gould's area. And he got caught, when we shut down the service. So this supervisor that was there, he wasn't too familiar with the South Miami-Dade area, and I says, well, let me take him, because I know my way around, and let me take him, and you go on in, because this storm is getting close, and the weather, we had a couple of squalls that came through that it was scared the crap out of us. So I picked up the young man. I took him to the orphanage, or I don't know if it's an orphanage or a house where several, orphan kids lived at. And he said, no, they're not gonna open the door. I said, well, yes, they are. He said, they don't open the door after a certain time. I tried calling them. They said not even to come home. I said, what the hell? So we got there, and sure enough, honked the horn, hit, knocked the door, and nobody come out. And they were in there, but they wouldn't even open the door. So I started hitting the windows and hitting the shutters that they had on the windows. And I was threatening them. I said, I'm going to call PD. I got a young man out here. There's a storm coming. You better open the door. And somebody from inside said, he missed the deadline or the curfew or whatever he said. I said, F you, asshole. I says, open the door. It's a storm coming. I'm getting drenched out here. The wind is blowing. I says, I'm calling the police. And I did. I called the radio, said, send me the police down this way. So somebody opened the door and took him in. And again, nobody said shit to me. Nobody said, thank you or anything like that. I was soaking wet. And I just looked down in disbelief, because I was going to take that kid home with me. I wasn't going to let him out there on the storm by himself. So I got him home, and I got him into the orphanage, and I was close to home. And I said, I can't go back to the garage to get my personal vehicle. It's going to have to stay in the garage. It was at the Medley garage, and at the time, that's where I was working at. So I went home. I got home, my family was worried. So they kept calling me. Mom kept calling me, go home, the storm is here, And I'm thinking, this is going to be Andrew all over again. Luckily, I got home and was able to, the shutters were already up and all that, and I was able to spend the storm there, well, weather out the storm there. And it blew. I mean, we had triple digit winds. It blew. It messed up my, it took some shingles off my house and messed up my rear fence. It knocked down a couple of trees, made a big old mess. It was scary because we heard all kind of noises outside, and in the middle of the storm I went outside. I thought the roof was coming off. And what happened is we had some sheet metal from somewhere nearby hit our back porch and got wrapped up around column they have out there that used to be where one of the old satellite dishes used to be hooked up to, and it was making this wicked noise because it had wrapped itself around that, and the wind was just flapping it. So I came back in the house, you know, real quick, and there was I mean, I got all scratched up because there was all kind of debris on the ground and stuff like that. So I was bleeding from my legs and my knees. My dog, Ox, a Rottweiler at the time, he came out the house and he was right there with me. He was like, he could feel the storm, he could feel the emergency. So I went back in the house and told my wife, I said, this thing is yard is a freaking mess. I know we had all our windows shorted up so we couldn't see outside. And I told her, listen, this yard is a freaking mess. And give me a second here, we'll go across the tracks. And the storm blew, I mean, it blew good. And unlike Katrina, there was more rain than wind. This one was a lot of wind. Power went out. We were without power for about 10 days. Luckily, what drove the storm our way was the first cold front of the year. So the temperatures after the storm came through, or the front came through, until the power got back, and I don't think it was 10 days. I think it might have been 5 days. The temperatures were kind of cool at night and with low humidity, so you know, the community had come together like we always do, and somebody always barbecue at night, and we're all barbecuing for each other and looking out for each other. I would go out because I had to work, of course. I would go out and I find water or ice, and I bring them to the neighbors, and it was a good bonding experience, you know, between all the neighbors. But as soon as that storm blew through, I didn't even sleep. I had to get back on that van and head to the Medley garage, and we got to do that, you know, to do a damage assessment. So I headed up. As soon as I left the house, I noticed traffic lights, just about all of them were down. Got on the Florida Turnpike. It was like an obstacle course. All kind of the signs, the road signs were down, the power poles were down. It was a mess. Finally made it up to the garage at Medley. There was a bunch of buses that were messed up. I was the first one to get there. I was the first one to give damage assessment. The wind had come into the doors of into the interior, through the door to the interior of the bus, and the wind has to come out somehow. So it was either blowing the windshields out or it was blowing the roof hatches. So we had only a couple of buses that were inside maintenance at the time that were operable. The rest of them all needed body repairs. So of course service was suspended. Whatever buses were available from other garages and stuff when sent out, you know, to go to the shelters and get everybody back home. I spent the day at the garage assisting with the paperwork, and that whole week after that was a nightmare. It was a nightmare. It was trying to get service back together and doing all this documentation so we can be reimbursed by the feds, by FEMA. And at the same time worried about home, and the property wasn't secure with all the fencing down and stuff like that. And it was super stressful. I'm telling you, I don't want to go through that again. Katrina was bad. It flooded us out. But we're Princeton is on a pretty high elevation, so the water didn't go inside our homes. I just I had to stay home for a couple of days because I was trapped in the neighborhood. Every place, the surrounding areas were all, you know, flooded out. But back to Wilma, it was stressing. It was everybody was home during the day for about 4 or 5 days, but us being, you know, public service, I had work every day. We were working 7 days a week, and at night sometimes you know, you're afraid of looters. Luckily nothing happened in our neighborhood, but we had one person stay up all night, armed of course, to make sure that nothing happened. So that's the story of Katrina, and it goes back to show you from one of my previous rants. People say that county workers haven't made, but county workers got to go out there when nobody else does. We're called vital employees or something like that. See if I can make this U-turn here. I don't see no U-turn sign, so make a U-turn and head back the other way. So that's the rant and the ride for today. And hope you enjoyed the ride. I'll say it again, like I always said. The worst things you can do is drink and drive. See many accidents, many dead bodies, and it's something that's totally unavoidable. If you overdo it, you can always call an Uber. They'll even tow your car for you, take it home. But don't drink and drive. Stay sober, please. Be good to each other. Know what I mean? So, a little different ride today, a little different story. Y'all take care of yourself now. Bye-bye.